Welcome to the NASA National Championships here in Tooele, Utah. We are at Miller Motorsports Park. The class we'll be focusing on here is the Factory 5 racers. Here's your starting order.
So Scott McKay will start on pole. David Standridge will start second. Karen Salvaggio starts third. John George fourth. And Paul Kaiser will start fifth.
Robert Walter in sixth. Carl Thompson seventh. T.C. McNitt in eighth. Ninth will be Rick Anderson. And Tim Concole will round out the top 10.
So lights are off on the pace car. We'll round release, and then these cars are going to take the green.
Release, of course, being the name of the final turn, as all the turns here at Miller Motorsports Park are named. And, of course, the cars in Factory 5 all resembling the legendary Cobra, created by Carroll Shelby back in the mid-60s to go out and beat the Ferraris, in which they did. Green flag, and we're racing.
On board with Dave Standridge, our pole sitter. Standridge takes the green. Looks like we're going 3-4 wide as we head down the front straightaway.
Looks like we're going off-road racing. Pushing each other right off the bat.
And that is Scott McKay in that orange car looking to the inside. Looks like he may be challenging for the lead, pushing John George on the outside, but John George will be on the inside going into turn 2, and we'll see if he can hang on.
Staying door handle to door handle there. Pretty sketchy there. First couple of turns in lap number 1. You know, the old saying is there's absolutely no way you can win a race on lap 1, but you can lose one.
That's right. And Scott McKay with a gutsy move to get out front in front of John George. John George taking a look on the inside, going to try and take it back, going into Blackhawk hairpin.
Man, way, way deep. It's going to cost him. He slings out way wide, and right back to the point he goes.
Scott McKay, good job on this opening lap. You know, these cars don't have a lot of grip, a fair amount of horsepower. They skate and slide all over the place, true to the nature of the original Cobra. And, you know, you really have to be up on the wheel to get one of these things to go fast, especially on cold tires. And we can see Scott McKay is one of the best at it.
Yeah, McKay really taking him in deep there and was able to get it back. Of course, talking about the open cockpit, a lot of different things going on there you have to prepare for, especially if you're racing in the weather. But beautiful weather out here today.
Yeah, Dave, it's such a cool shot to see Standridge kind of working the wheel there as they make their way down into Tooele turn. You can see him kind of breaking loose, getting sideways there a little bit, trying to build temperature in these tires as they make their way around for the first lap. And McKay, our pole sitter, dropping back into second, but by no means is he out of the hunt yet, as he's followed by Paul Kaiser in that sort of dark green, bluish-looking car. Kaiser's going to be coming up third right now. All of these guys are very, very quick. All of them are always a challenge for the win, the NASA Championships. They're all sort of, you know, long-standing Factory 5 racers, and I expect we're going to have a really good race between the three of these drivers.
Yeah, McKay really loose there in a couple of those turns, and I think that's going to affect him in his straightaway speed. It looks like Kaiser now trying to take advantage of it.
And Kaiser pulling to the inside of John George. I think he's going to be able to take over second. Meanwhile, a little bit farther back, we have some drivers battling for fourth place. And, man, you could see Kaiser really closing up on Scott McKay as they entered turn 1. Kaiser very good under braking, and I think he's going to be, looks like John George went off there. John George off the racetrack. Heartbreak for him as he slides off. He'll get going again. But that's going to knock him down in the running order.
He'll be hoping for a caution flag out here early, and it's the only shot he's going to have to bunch this field back up and have another run at it.
Yeah, that's right. Now it's down to Kaiser and McKay as we wind this race down. We're going to be 2 laps in with quite a few laps to go. 17 laps we'll be running here today. We drop back a little bit further back in the field. That white and red car is Karen Salvaggio.
Karen out of Lake Matthews, California.
Yep, and I believe that's Dave Standridge is just behind Karen. And then John George, I think, rejoined the field somewhere in there, so he should be lurking as well.
Very, very close racing here. A lot of these cars very close in performance, and you'll see these guys with them up on the scales, on the scale pads, between pretty much every round, making sure everything is set up perfectly on these cars.
That's right. That's one of the neat things about Factory 5, and I think we may have a full course. Yeah, we have full course caution out. Looks like we've got double yellow out on the course right now. So we were just talking about that, bunching up the field. And it looks like we may have a pace car coming out, and, well, maybe not. Scott McKay continuing to lead here in that orange and blue Factory 5 racer. Just behind him, Paul Kaiser.
Well, we did see the double yellow flags in that particular corner, so
yeah, we'll see if they come around. Yeah, it does appear that they're slowing down, so I think we are on full course yellow, and we talked about that. If John George was going to have a shot at making his way back up, yeah, we see the pace cars out on track. If he was going to have a shot at making his way back up to the front, this is what he needed to bunch the field back up to potentially give him a chance of making up for that early spin. So, folks, we're going to take a quick break and come right back to more Factory 5 racing. Stay tuned. More racing coming up.
We are here at Miller Motorsports Park with the Factory 5 category for the NASA National Championships. We're in Tooele, Utah, on a beautiful day here just outside of Salt Lake City.
So Scott McKay has the lead. I believe we're going to go green this lap. We'll look for the lights to go out on the pace car. McKay in that orange Factory 5 Roadster.
He has come a long, long ways as well, all the way from Brandon, Florida, running in that Florida region. That's just outside of Tampa.
Paul Kaiser will line up second, and Karen Salvaggio will line up third in that white and red Factory 5 Roadster. So expect some good racing here on the start as they go green again. Pace car is off.
And Paul Kaiser also a pretty good trip there, coming from Troutville, Virginia, and John George out of New Hampshire. So some East Coast and Southeast drivers out here showing pretty well today.
Man, and look at that pack at the front. Top 4 cars all bunched up. We'll go back to that shot in just a moment here as we watch the rest of the field stream by. Look at that, side by side. Kaiser challenging for the lead, not able to get it done. Salvaggio right there as well as George tries to hang on.
Good nose-to-tail action right there, and you said before, I mean, these cars can be a handful, especially when you push them right to the edge. You've got to keep them freed up to carry that speed.
That's right, yeah. I love watching these cars because there's always a lot of wheel-to-wheel racing. The cars slide around so much, it creates a lot of opportunities for these different drivers to pass and kind of close in on each other, and especially in a real fast racetrack like this, we're going to see drafting play into sort of all of this race strategy as well. So I expect to see a lot of wheel-to-wheel racing throughout this event. But, so far Scott McKay has just been on the ball. He's been out in the lead all day long and looking really strong here now.
A couple of these guys getting around here in the 2-minute and 12-second range. Pretty quick lap. Side-by-side action there. Great battle for third place.
And that's Karen Salvaggio going at it with Dave Standrich. Standrich trying to work his way up into third, seeing if maybe he can make a crack at the podium now. And we remember John George is back there as well after that early spin. I'm sure John is trying to work his way up through the field. In fact, I think he's worked his way all the way up into third. Now on board with Standrich.
Boy, talk about using all the track and then the rumble strip and possibly a little piece of the dirt as well. Oh, yeah, look at those hands, man. He's busy in there.
Yeah, this is good action. I actually made a mistake there. I think that's John George in fourth, working on Salvaggio. So this is Standrich. He's back in sixth or seventh, trying to work his way up. We can see Robert Walter, I believe that. Whoa, and Standrich goes around.
We were just talking about, I mean, these guys are just on the ragged edge, and that time it bit him.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing. These cars have a lot of horsepower. It's actually based on a late model Mustang chassis and drivetrain, and not a lot of tires. So you got to be really, really easy with the throttle as you come off these low-speed corners, because it's just so easy to loop the car when you get a little bit too much wheel spin. And that's what we saw there. Standrich just being a little bit too greedy maybe with the throttle and just spins it around, able to continue on, but obviously loses a lot of position. And now he's going to have to make his way back up to the front.
Out of Scream, heading down to Black Rock Hairpin. Widens out right here, creates a great overtaking opportunity.
And there's Kaiser in that darker car trying to make his way around McKay, still not able to get it done. McKay, we're seeing now, is starting to take a little bit more defensive line there. We talked about that before, Ken, where you take that defensive line and it really hurts your exit speed, but it is one way to keep the guy behind you behind as you enter into Black Rock.
Stretches it out nicely right there. Looks like potentially some horsepower advantage. Or just rolled off that last turn a bit better, but coming into attitudes here, you need to be perfect or your car can really get upset and it could cost you a lot of time coming down into Tooele turn.
As you mentioned, one of the neat things about this class is that these cars are built from a kit. So you get a Mustang and you buy the kit from Factory 5 and you put this race car together. It's specifically designed for racing, but they also have a kit you can build a street car out of as well. So all these guys are really, really hands-on with their cars. They've sort of known the thing from its infancy. Usually they build it themselves or build it with a friend, and so they're sort of mechanics as well as racers. And a lot of times, how well you built your car and how well you've maintained it and how much you've done to sort of make sure that everything holds together really factors into these races. So one of the things we'll be watching for later on is reliability. Have these guys done a good job sort of turning the screws and making sure that their machines stay together and are consistently quick throughout the event?
And it looked like McKay diving down to the bottom of the track trying to break up any potential drafting opportunity. I don't know that you can really do that in the straightaway being so long, but boy, I'll tell you, man, these two guys, McKay and Kaiser, just going at it.
Yeah, Kaiser dropped a wheel off there. McKay is definitely feeling the pressure from Kaiser. Kaiser, I think, maybe a little bit quicker right now, and McKay is trying to keep him behind. He's feeling the pressure from Kaiser, and Kaiser's coming.
Yeah, Kaiser staying out there, staying nice and wide, looking for a better arcing opportunity here.
But this is really the challenge. Even if you get alongside, you tend to be on the outside heading into the next corner, and it really doesn't do you much good, and that's kind of been the challenge all day for all the classes we've been watching. Even if your opponent blocks going into Black Rock Hairpin, he's still got the inside line going at a right hook, and usually there's nothing you can do with it except to sort of hang on and hope that you get a better run somewhere else.
But the advantage, I do believe, to a position like that is to just create pressure. You might not be able to make the pass, but if you can keep that pressure there, hopefully you can force them into a mistake in the next couple of turns.
That's right, yeah, and we've seen that before, especially with these cars. They get so loose so easily. You drop a wheel off somewhere, you get a little bit too much wheel spin. Next thing you know, you spun it around, and the guy behind has made his way by. So, yeah, I agree. If you're able to put pressure on, it's just one more opportunity, and there's a lot of laps to sort of wear somebody down mentally and hopefully, force them into a mistake if you can't just get by them cleanly.
Yeah, especially early on in a race like this, and there's so many times where a driver will know, hey, I can't pass him here, but what I can do is get on the back bumper. I can pull up beside him, let him know I'm here, pull around the other side, and then back off a little bit and run my proper line through the turn. But, yeah, it is. It's about creating pressure, especially in a class where the competition is so close, and you can't just, run around somebody down the straightaway.
That's right, and you can see even now where McKay kind of ducks to the inside. He's trying to break the draft. He's trying to make sure that Kaiser can't suck up on him because these engines are so very, very close. And you can see Kaiser gets alongside of him, but because McKay takes that inside sort of defensive line, Kaiser hasn't been able to get around. Kaiser drops a wheel off again.
Yeah, I really think that's a little too aggressive coming down that front straightaway for McKay. He did kind of hang on to the spot, but I don't think it was because he broke the draft in that particular case. I actually think it kind of hurt him, especially in that last move. It probably did scrub a little bit of speed. Of course, he hung on to that position. I do believe in protecting the bottom, which he will do here again.
Yeah, and at some point you sort of get into the one move rule, which is, man, these guys are side by side again. You get into that one move rule where, the rule is that you can only make one move in terms of blocking. If you start weaving like that, then that sort of gets in the area where, potentially the officials would take a look at it. So McKay's got to be a little bit careful here that he doesn't violate that blocking rule and get himself in trouble with the officials.
So a nice 1-2 again as he comes out of knockout, that right-hander, and headed towards what they call witchcraft now to the attitudes. He got a nice run there so he can run through the attitudes cleanly. And you could actually see that that Kaiser's car got a little upset there as he got on that rumble strip.
Yeah, and Kaiser's dropped back a little bit, so that gives McKay a little bit of breathing room here, which is kind of nice. And that's really the key for him. If he can get enough of a gap, a couple car lengths where he doesn't have to block, then he can start focusing on putting down some laps and potentially opening that gap up more. The real challenge, though, is every time we get on the front straightaway, that draft just sort of eliminates whatever advantage he has, and he's got to deal with watching Kaiser just suck right back up on him again. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Factory 5 racing. Stay tuned. There's more to come just halfway through this race. The National Autosport Association Factory 5 National Championship is brought to you by Factory 5 Racing, the world's leading component car manufacturer, and Toyo Tires, driven to perform.
McKay and Kaiser have been putting on a show here in the Factory 5 race at Miller Motorsports Park for the NASA National Championships.
McKay still pressuring Kaiser still pressuring McKay. Scott McKay in that orange car out in the lead. He's been in the lead all day long. And Paul Kaiser right there trying to find a way by, has not been able to do it, but still dogging McKay. And McKay, I've got to say, I've been really impressed with him. He has been very calm, very cool under fire. Hasn't made a whole lot of mistakes. Haven't seen any wheels drop off or anything like that. And, doing a real good job here today under a lot of pressure from Paul Kaiser all race long.
Yeah, and you mentioned it before. I think Kaiser does have the quicker of the two cars, but just not quick enough to get around him. It's one thing to catch him. It's another thing to pass him. And if he could get out front, who knows, maybe he could drive away. But right now, as you mentioned, McKay just driving a perfect line, has not succumbed to the pressures. And I'll tell you, Kaiser has provided a lot of pressure, but McKay has driven a flawless race to this point.
Yeah, McKay just doing a great job. And McKay, we talked about this. Kaiser's opened up a little bit of a gap, but every time we get on the straightaway, McKay's able to suck back up on that draft. We see McKay sort of weaving around, trying to break the draft with Kaiser. Kaiser able to pull back up, but just not quite enough to be able to get it done. You can see he's kind of taking a look, but...
boy.
Oh, man.
And I'll tell you, man, I think the officials are going to have a really hard look at that one. I don't know if there was any contact, but no question that Kaiser had the run on him. And, McKay obviously knew something we didn't know, and that's that Kaiser must have a little more engine than he has, because we saw him blocking frantically in the previous laps down that straightaway. That time he left the bottom open, hoping he could hang on, and Kaiser was coming.
Yeah, Kaiser took a look at the inside, just not able to get it done. Not sure if there was contact or not. It looks like he's going to hold on to second place, third place quite a ways back. But unfortunately, that also means that Paul Kaiser's dropped back and will not have an opportunity to challenge for the win.
Good battle here going on for third place. And some breakup there. He locked up those rear tires. The rear bias set up a little stiffer, and it looped him around once he finally got both of them locked up.
I believe that was TC McNett, that yellow car. So, fortunately, TC again spinning around, and he's going to drop back a bit.
Transferring the weight, obviously, off those rear tires as he was braking hard, and the Black Rock hairpin. And it cost him eventually. Of course, this guy up here, McKay, now with clear sailing.
Yeah, McKay's kind of the beneficiary of all this stuff. McKay now has a huge gap on the rest of the field, and he can just kind of cruise now, set the thing to cruise and lay back and conserve the car, make sure he doesn't drop a wheel off or break anything, and smooth sailing from here, but still a lot of laps left. And as we've seen, anything can happen in this class.
Yeah, I guarantee you Kaiser would love to see another caution flag come out here. He has to be livid inside of that car after what just happened. If nothing else, I'd love to just be in the tech paddock after the race, because I promise you a few words will be exchanged.
That's right, yeah. And we see this a lot in Factory 5. These cars are just... the cars get loose so easily. It's just so easy to spin these cars. Even these guys that have 1,000 laps in the cars still have trouble. We saw that with John George earlier going around. Saw that with McKay. We saw that with TC McNett. It's just so easy to spin the cars, and unfortunately, especially if you have a little bit of contact or you get pinched a little bit, it's so easy to turn the car around, and that's what happened there. So, hopefully the officials will be able to make sense of all that and come to a conclusion that's fair and equitable for everybody. But I agree, there may be some words said after this race.
A lot of these guys, if not all of them, all carry onboard cameras, and a lot of reason for that is so that they can go back and argue their case after the race. It is not uncommon for those guys to roll tape.
Sure, absolutely, and you hear that more and more from even for us when we're at an event. Often the officials come to us at Speedcast and say, "Well, we're going to have to pull that in-car video and give it back to you later." So maybe doing a little bit of that today. Meanwhile, keying back on John George. John recovering from that earlier spin and having a good run in third place now. He's able to work his way back up onto the podium. And who knows, if we get a caution, then that's going to sort of turn the whole thing on its head. And John and Paul Kaiser may have another crack at this thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what we talked about before. I mean, after that loop, he got a caution flag immediately there following, which helped him, get a couple of those spots back. He's up on the podium as it stands right now.
Sure, and now we're back with Kaiser. And really, for having spun off like that, Kaiser didn't lose that much time. I mean, conceivably, if we saw some problem with McKay's car, Kaiser could still come back. I mean, he's like the short chute back. We saw McKay just went by, Kaiser just coming out of Tooele turn, so not that much room there. And John George too could come back on Kaiser and potentially challenge as well if somebody has a problem or tire going down. So this race certainly isn't over by any means.
McKay and Kaiser, certainly the class of the field at this point, able to rip off laps in the 212 range, low 213s. So no doubt the setup on the car is perfect, driving them extremely hard.
And once again, Scott McKay making his way down this long straightaway into turn one. Fairly fast corner, turn one, long 180. Then you work your way into Dream, turn two. Also very quick. This whole complex, this 1, 2, 3, 4 complex is very, very quick. In the slower classes, they actually almost take the whole thing flat out. We were watching some Spec Miata races earlier, and the Spec Miatas just sort of breathe the throttle a little bit to get through this first couple of corners, and that's it. So these Factory 5 guys obviously have to put on the brakes a little bit, but still a very, very quick complex. They're going well over 100. They come out of Scream, so kind of a neat complex for these cars. They can really open them up and stretch their legs a little bit and see all the capabilities of these Factory 5 Roadsters around this big 3-mile course.
So a bit of a wiggle there out of McKay's car, and again, so he has not let up at all. He's still pushing extremely hard.
When I just saw the debris flag out, that was that yellow flag with red stripes on it. That may mean there's oil, fluid, maybe a chunk of bodywork, something on the track. It sort of let these guys know that there's something on the course itself they need to watch out for. So we'll keep an eye on that. That could factor into all this. If there is oil on the track, you may end up with a situation where somebody spins off. So keep an eye on that debris flag as McKay closes on what is a CMC2 car. That's a slower car in a different class. McKay will make his way around that car pretty easily.
CMC standing for Camaro Mustang Challenge, so those guys out here having a great time today as well. A couple different divisions there, and he just makes his way around him, no problem at all.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, Ken, where there's just, this track is so big where normally, if you were in a smaller 2.5 mile course, the cars would be bunched up a lot more. There'd be a lot more traffic would come into play. With these big, long track like this. It's so wide. There's so many big straightaways that, when you do lap cars, there's plenty of room to get by them. And I think it's been kind of nice. It's meant that these leaders don't have to worry too much about working their way through traffic as they make their way around the track.
And it looks like Kaiser might be closing that gap here a little bit on McKay. I mean, he's kind of gotten himself back into the picture again.
Yeah, I agree. Kaiser running some very quick lap times. I think he is closing. I think, McKay is going to have to make sure he stays on the gas here because we still have quite a few laps left. And, if he relaxes too much, he may see Kaiser in his mirrors again. And I don't think that Kaiser's going to lift off this time. I think if it comes to wheel, Paul may make a different decision there, and it may end up with Scott McKay around. So we'll see how that works out as we keep an eye on John George as well in third place.
It's so difficult to leave emotion on the table, but as a race car driver, if you can do that, you will be all the better for it. Of course, an upsetting moment there for Kaiser when he was encountered by McKay, but if he can check all that, go back to driving and hitting his marks, driving the best line he can possibly drive, that will be his only shot at getting even with McKay, which of course is to steal the win away from him.
Yeah, and he is coming. I mean, Kaiser is eating into this lead. Maybe McKay is a problem. Maybe he's just relaxing a little bit. But Kaiser can smell raw meat, man. He knows he's catching him. He knows he's coming. So it's getting close. We may see some fireworks here before the end.
He's a motivated driver, to say the least.
That's right. Yep.
Good stuff. And take a look at the mountains in the background there. I mean, this place is just spectacular. If you want to come to an amazing race facility, this is it. And, you know, a lot of times when you go to a road racing course, you typically only get to see a couple of turns, maybe 2, 3, 4 turns at the most. But when you come here, the seating that is at this racetrack allows you to watch the entire 3-mile outer loop course, or the even larger course, of course, when they open up the infield, which exceeds 4 miles, some 4.4 miles.
Yeah, it's really neat, and they have some big races here. They have Superbikes come in, which is a really big event for them, and you know, a lot of fans come out for that. And you know, that's the thing about road racing. A lot of road race courses may be beautiful for the driver, but unfortunately for the spectators, they just can't see very much. And when you come to Miller, you know, you can really almost see the whole course around. And in a lot of cases, these drivers will have a spotter up high somewhere in the stands, helping them out because they can see the whole course and they can let them know if there's a car off somewhere or an obstacle somewhere the driver needs to be aware of.
Great look one more time, keeping an eye on Scott McKay coming out of Brandon, Florida, the orange and blue Factory 5 Roadster. Of course, associated with a law firm and RPM Boys Racing, doing a great job. Really received a lot of pressure early on from Paul Kaiser. Kaiser took a look at the inside a few laps ago, coming down into turn number 1, but it was McKay who shut the door on him, and basically Kaiser went off the track trying to keep it gathered up. So he's had a clear running ever since, but Kaiser, I should say, has slowly been picking away at it, trying to catch back up.
He has, though. I think maybe it started to even out a little bit. I think maybe McKay, you know, either looked in his mirrors or maybe his crew said something to him. He may have picked up the pace a little bit because it seems like now the gap has sort of solidified. It doesn't look like Kaiser's closing any more in on him, but I can guarantee Kaiser's putting 110% into that car right now, trying to work his way back up to McKay.
And the tough break for Kaiser is he has to run flat out, wide open till the end of the race, or unless he can get around McKay, McKay has an issue. For McKay, you might have been right. I mean, he might have taken 3-4 laps there, take it easy on the brakes, take it easy on the tires, knowing that Kaiser was coming, but saved a little bit there in the middle and now has to push hard at the end.
Absolutely. It's all about managing the gap. And you're right, if he saved a little bit, he has that much more left if it comes down to another battle. And the thing that could happen, we've seen this in other races, we might have another full course caution. So again, whatever McKay's been able to save up to use at the end, that's that much more that Kaiser hasn't been able to save up because he's been trying to make up this huge gap.
And you're looking at third place here. That is John George coming out of New Hampshire. Long haul for him as well, running in the Northeast region.
John George, real strong showing the last couple of years of the NASA Championship. Good, strong competitor. Built that car from scratch a few years back and never looked back. He's been racing ever since. Really nice guy. And again, one of these guys that kind of turns his own wrenches and does his own thing. And we see all these different cars from all different parts of the country. And one of the neat things about Factory 5 is when these guys show up for a race, they sort of all pit together. They have barbecues together. They really have a good time together. And Factory 5 has brought out a bunch of different cars. They have sort of a coupe concept that they bring out. They have a hot rod now that they've kit car that they brought, and all those are on display. And they do a barbecue and a bunch of stuff for these guys to really make this a fun event for all the Factory 5 racers who have chosen to make this long trek out to Miller.
And I think you find that a lot in NASA in general. I mean, it is definitely family-oriented, and when you go out to any one of the regional events, you'll find out that people are hanging out. I mean, they're lifelong friends. They're camping out. They bring their kids, and like you said, having barbecues at nighttime, and hopefully not working on the race car all night long. But
right. that happens sometimes too. Yeah.
If everything goes well, and if they don't, typically you find some friends that are right over there getting their hands dirty, trying to help you get back in the competition.
That's right, and you see these Factory 5 guys often are helping each other with setup. Obviously everybody's the same car, so it's not uncommon if somebody's having a mechanical problem or the handling isn't quite the way they want it. It's just one of those crowds that you can sort of walk up to somebody else and say, hey, what are you doing? And for the most part, they're more than happy to share that information and help out. So really neat way to get involved in racing, and encourage anybody who's sort of thinking about getting involved and has sort of the itch to build their own race car. This is a very good way to go. Pretty reasonable to put one together. It's a fiberglass body, which is really nice for repairs, and obviously the cars make good lap times and have a lot of close racing, and seem really fun to drive. I'd actually like to try my hand at one at some point.
McKay starting to stretch it back out again now. I believe he's actually putting some distance in between he and Kaiser, and he really caught that lapper at an opportune time so that he could draft with him down a big portion of that straightaway, make up a little more ground, a little more speed, passed him towards the end of the straightaway, and there's no question he is putting some real estate between he and Kaiser at this point.
That's right, yeah. McKay definitely is, I think, turned up the wick, got it back up to 9 or 10 tenths, as they say, so seems to have this race well in hand. Although, as we said before, anything can happen. And, one of the things we've seen historically with some of the Camaro Mustang Challenge cars is, occasionally the engine life on those cars isn't quite as good. And, towards the end of the race, we may see one or more of those engines expire. And that can put fluid down on the track. It can potentially bring out a full course caution. So, as these laps wind down, that's one of the things we'll want to keep an eye on, and one of the things that could sort of spoil McKay's day.
Watching him go through Tooele turn, and a relatively short shoot as he comes up to Clubhouse corner. Oh, and a little smoke out of the back of that one, talking about engines expiring.
Yep, that's what we were talking about, the 33. It's a CMC car.
The 33 of Brown and Chichaka.
Yep, so looks like he maybe his day is ended. Looks like that thing's got
Actually, it looks like it might be I wonder if that's a tire rubbing, because it looked like the right rear was sagging, quite possibly a shock or something that's gone away on the car.
Yeah, it could be, or it could be that's just where the exhaust pipe is, and we're seeing oil smoke. Whatever it is, it's definitely getting worse, so... Yeah,
it's covering up the back of the car now.
Yeah, that's definitely getting worse. We'll see if he pulls it off track or if he decides to keep... what the heck, we'll just keep going.
Yep, I mean, that was the entry to pit road right there, so either he doesn't know, spotter hasn't told him, doesn't have a spotter, or just doesn't care.
That's right, yeah, just keep running it. So this could be an issue if this car is laying down oil, transmission fluid, something like that. He's still running online, and if it is laying down fluid, it could factor in as these guys come around and get in that fluid. And if this is oil, it's always a bad sign when it starts to not smoke anymore, because that means all the oil's gone.
Well, and the battle for him, I mean, he doesn't want to pull, and he's in second place right now in the category. So, I mean, the last thing you want to do is have to get above a podium position at the national championships, and just a couple laps you have to go here. So maybe he can hang on if they don't throw that black flag out.
Right, and we don't want to be too quick to judge here. I mean, that car could be smoking without dropping oil on the racetrack. So certainly that's a possibility. You get another one that looks like it may be smoking just ahead of Kaiser.
That looked like a tire rub there. I mean, it smoked whenever he went through both of those left-handers and then goes away.
Yep, I think you're right. So
there it is again, another left-hander and some more smoke, and seems to clear up when he takes the weight off that right side of the car.
So we'll try and get a number on that competitor. So laps winding down here. A little bit of action from some of our CMC competitors.
The 11 looked like the 7. Well, it looked like 11. It might be number 77 actually of Michael Plum.
We got another car slowing. So white flag is out.
That is, maybe it is a number 11 because the 77 of Plum is a 1987 model Mustang, and that is certainly not an 87, much newer than that.
That's
I'm sorry,
right.
Plum actually in a Camaro.
Yep, so white flag out for Scott McKay. He'll have one more circulation around this 3.1 mile course. And we will see how it all works out. McKay with a nice, strong lead over Paul Kaiser, who in turn has a big lead over John George. So top 3 positions in Factory 5 racing are pretty well spread out, but one more circulation. Never know what's going to happen, especially as we were talking about with potentially some fluid, oil in the track, something like that. McKay may want to back off a little bit and just make sure that he's able to bring this thing home.
And just to give credit, I think the 11 car now is we've had a chance to take a look at the entry list. Looks like it might be Jim Griffith. So best of luck to him to hang on here for the final duration of this event.
So Scott McKay will work his way through right hook. Got a couple more Camaro Mustang Challenge cars just ahead. Real fast corner and Witchcraft right here. Real fast right-hander, and then up through the Attitudes. They call these first attitude, good attitude, and then bad attitude. I think McKay's attitude is pretty good right now. He's got a nice lead, closing in on a championship.
Fairly good elevation change there as well. Be kind of difficult here to see on the monitor, but pretty good elevation change as they drop away.
And there he is, Scott McKay. Nice solid lead. We cannot quite see Paul Kaiser. I imagine he's just coming onto that shirt. Well, Kaiser's closed up a bit. I think McKay's probably backed off, but I doubt it's going to be enough for Kaiser to make a run on him at this point. As McKay just has 2 more corners to go before taking the checkered flag.
Yeah, my guess would be that he backed off. And safe than sorry here in this final lap.
That's right.
And the checkered flag will come out. Congratulations to Scott McKay out of Bradenton, Florida.
Yeah, and Paul Kaiser keeping him honest. Paul Kaiser coming up, recovering from the spin there to come home second.
Now, my apologies, by the way. I think I said Brandon a little bit earlier. It is Bradenton, Florida, but still, ironically enough, in the same location of the state of Florida. They're pretty much side by side.
Well, I'll forward the letter of complaint on to you.
I'll put it in the pile.
That's right. So Scott McKay's going to come home with the win. Paul Kaiser second. John George third. Karen Salvaggio will finish fourth. Dave Standrich fifth. Rick Anderson sixth. Robert Walter seventh. Mike Bueller eighth. Michael Peters ninth. And Peter LaRose will come home in 10th. The National Autosport Association Factory 5 National Championship is brought to you by Factory 5 Racing, the world's leading component car manufacturer, and Toyo Tires, driven to perform.